Дамы и господа, старший научный сотрудник ULI, модератор пленарного заседания господин Грег Кларк.
Ladies and gentlemen, please greet Senior Fellow.
Metropolitan Program and Global Cities Initiative, the Brookings.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, First Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Mayor, distinguished guests. Welcome to the 2014 Moscow Urban Forum, where we will debate the drivers of city development and the reciprocal relationships between cities and national governments. First, I would like to introduce to you most of our distinguished panelists, starting here with First Deputy Prime Minister of the Russian Federation, Mr. Igor Shuvalov. Sitting next to him is the Minister of State for Trade and Industry from Singapore, Mr. Sir Lak Teo. I will introduce our host last, so I hope you forgive me. Next to our host is the Mayor of Tel Aviv, Mr. Ron Huldai. Next to the Mayor of Tel Aviv, we have the Minister for Construction and Buildings, Mr. Mikhail Main of the Russian Federation. Next to him, we have the Mayor of Mumbai, India, Ms. Nanal Ambekar. Next to her, the Secretary of Development from Hong Kong, Mr. Paul Chan. And next to him, the former Mayor of Bogota, Mr. or Dr. Antanas Mokas. And next to me, the Governor of Bangkok, Mr. Sukamband Paribrata. Welcome to our distinguished panel, and also in the room we have many other city leaders, mayors and delegation leaders. Please will the mayors and the city leaders in the room stand up. Let us welcome them, ladies and gentlemen. And now, please join me in welcoming our distinguished host, the Mayor of Moscow, Mr. Sergei Sarbanyan. Thank you.
Добрый день.
Good morning, dear friends, dear colleagues. I'm really glad to welcome you here in Moscow at the 4th Moscow Urban Forum. And I have to tell you that it is already became a good tradition that we have quite a significant snowfall when the forum starts working in Moscow. So for many guests, it is quite exotic. Yesterday, I met the mayor of Mumbai when she asked me what kind of problems are we facing in Moscow now, and the answer was very simple: the same of Mumbai plus snow. This year, and also every year, we normally increase the number of countries participating in this forum, so the number of expert participants grows from year to year, and this forum accommodates the record-wise number of participants, 4,700 people from 20 countries from all over the world, and I'm welcoming you here. I would like to thank the government of Singapore, who agreed to become the partner of Moscow Urban Forum. I also would like to thank my colleagues, the mayors of Mumbai, Rio, Riga, Tel Aviv, Ankara, and other cities who joined us during this forum. And I also would like to thank and welcome the mayors of Russian cities who are here today. I'm welcoming you. The main topic of our forum today is the megapolis and nation reciprocal relationship for development, which is quite acute for every single big city in every single country. It is quite difficult to imagine that Russia can exist without Moscow, St. Pete, USA without New York, UK without London, and France without Paris. It would be absolutely different countries which will be deprived of a significant intellectual stock, of a cultural heritage, and many other things. The big cities accommodate the development of science and culture, may also generate new standards of life, and afterwards these standards of life can be spread over the other less urbanized territories. Certainly for the governments of those countries, it is very important to develop in a harmonic way the whole countries, but nevertheless the development of megapolises can not contradict with the development, but can also contribute to the development and can add additional harmony to the development of the whole nation and the country. What do we need to do in order to increase the positive contribution of megapolises to the development of nations and regions? This is the issue we would like to discuss today within the first day of our forum. It is absolutely an acute task for Moscow. The modern Moscow is successful global city which managed to get ranked second in terms of development dynamics among all the big cities in the world. As PwC company mentioned in its study, the faster dynamics in development is seen in Beijing, but this distance between Beijing and Moscow is getting smaller every year. And as every global city, Moscow normally compares itself and competes for winning international investments with other global big cities in other countries. But also Moscow is the capital of a large country, and we also have our own hopes and aimings which are in line with the Russian ones. The city projects like the underground development, the road development, the rolling stock improvement, and the modernization of the healthcare system are normally projects which can be considered Russian-wide, because thousands of entrepreneur companies and people are taking part in it. Every ruble invested in Moscow can generate profit not only for the Moscow business but also for the whole Russian business in different Russian regions. Millions of Russians come every year to Moscow in order to get the education, in order to find jobs, because this exchange can only enrich our country, and because Moscow is the largest transportation hub which can transport up to 80% of all the cargoes and passengers of Russia, and around 30% of the whole Russian science is located in Moscow, which makes the Russia to a scientific center. Around 80% of all the financial streams and flows and tools are also in Moscow. So this is the synergy of Moscow which helps to implement large-scale international projects. Because there are different models of cooperation between the city and national governments, so we can also get a very wide autonomy in our action. So We are normally somewhere in the center between the centralized and decentralized power, but we in Moscow fulfill all federal laws, and we can also use our own and define our own budget and choose the projects we think should be crucial for the city development. No matter what kind of model of responsibilities given from the federal government can be chosen, I think the key to success is the very productive cooperation, because we need to take into account the people's interest and we need to aim at resolving the people's needs. We need to think first about the people's needs, and this is the art how to manage a city. Thank you very much, dear ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. I would like to give the floor back to you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much indeed for these wonderful remarks, reminding us of the important role that Moscow plays in the development of Russia and the globalization of its economy. We now turn, please, to the Minister for Trade and Industry of Singapore to introduce the Singapore story on drivers of development. Please welcome again Mr. Sir Lak Teo.
Deputy Prime Minister, mayors, deputy mayors, and mayors of all other cities. Very happy to be here and very honored to share the Singapore story. We are humbled by the invitation and we're happy to be a partner with Moscow in organizing this forum. Today I will share Singapore's story in brief, and hopefully I can summarize the main thoughts to share with you the development of Singapore as a city, and we have come so far. It's been about 50 years of developing this city, which is also a country. And I'm a product of this country after we went independence in 1965. This is Singapore today. I hope you can see from the slides. But Singapore today has many of the landscapes and skyscrapers, and actually it has a development that comes from 50 years ago, where we live in houses of our own, which we really built the houses of our own. But when we went independent, the first leadership decided that all the Singapore citizens, no matter what, should be provided with a house, a place of our own, we should own an asset, and we must have a job. So the Singapore story is actually very simple. We're just looking for survival. We are friends of the world, but we are finding our own spot in the world, and being friends of the world, being a valued partner of the world, we must continue to stay relevant. So Singapore always plans ahead to make sure that we stay relevant in the world as an economy, as a society, as a community of the world. Singapore is a very small place, 720 kilometers square land area. We have a 5.47 million population, and 3.5 million is local residents, Singaporeans. The rest, foreigners or permanent residents. And basically, if you get from one end to the other end in Singapore, it takes you less than 1 hour. So it's by train or by car, it just takes you less than 1 hour, and you can reach whatever place that you want to be. This is Singapore in the 50s and 60s. In the 50s and 60s, these are the places where we actually didn't develop the land as well, and basically we have a shortage of housing. Shortage of housing, shortage of jobs. Many of our ancestors and our grandparents actually work in manual jobs. There were no skills. Schools were there, but not all were educated. So including my own father. My father was an odd job laborer doing manual work, carrying cargoes from ship to shore. So those were the days where we came through. And we decided, with the independence, we decided to invest a lot in a few things. Education for the next generation. So I'm a beneficiary of the education system. House, make sure everybody owns a place. Jobs, make sure the economy grows. And now we've become one of the world's most livable city, but it didn't come without its pain and also the continuous learning. And these are the rankings, which I think you have the information. This is our house. This is where Singaporeans live. About 80% of the population, or more than 80% of the population, live in these houses, and they own these homes. They own these homes. We built them year on year and continue to make it better and upgrade them year on year. So you can see in 1950s, these were all sheds and all the different kind of houses. They was not all well organized. Then 1960, we start to build this, what we call housing development block flats or HDB flats. And subsequently, now, our public housing has become very sophisticated. It looks almost like a private condominium, and that is as high as 60 stories, 50 stories, and that is one of our most benchmark kind of housing today. And the house, if you go there, you'll think that it's a private home, but it's actually a public housing. We continue to upgrade them because while the community and the Singaporeans are also aspiring to have a better living environment, so the government, we try to provide as much as we can, a better living environment for everyone. The public housing model, first principle is that we want Singaporeans to own a home. Own a home of their own, they will also treat Singapore like a home. We are a small place, small population. We need all our citizens to feel the belonging. So house is one of the most important things to do. In building all these blocks of flats, we have to take care of the social integration of the different background and culture of our people. In Singapore, we have 4 main races, different types: Chinese, Malay, Indian, and other types. So we make sure that every block of flats, because our houses are high-rise, we build upwards, we don't have enough space, we can't build sideways, we build upwards. Every block of flats, there's a quota of the 4 different races to be living inside the block of flats. So it goes from every single block. So sometimes you will see some houses in that block of flats is left empty. That's because the quota is not reached, and we can't have any other race in there. So we make sure this policy implements in every single block. This is a concerted effort. It takes a very strong political will and intent to be able to do so as well. And we must make sure that whilst everybody has their own unit, they also have to earn their income to be able to afford these houses. But what about the low income? So we build a different block of flats to help this low income family. And it could be a smaller size flat, smaller size home for the low income family. If they can't afford it, Singapore has a unique social welfare system. We don't call it welfare anymore, we convert it to workfare, which means that we help them find a job before they ask for financial assistance. We help them indirectly to subsidize their home so that they continue to work and earn their income. So the workfare is a system where we try to integrate social welfare with actually jobs so that they can still continue to contribute economically. In Singapore, our unemployment rate is less than 2%. So at this kind of unemployment rate, we have to supply our jobs for our people. Our challenge is whether our people will take up those jobs and whether you will choose to be there. One of the most important aspects of the Singapore is the vibrant economy. And with a vibrant economy, we can create jobs. But we need to strengthen our economy through strengthening our businesses. That's exactly why we are encouraging a lot of businesses to go international. We are also strengthening them in their own operations. In Singapore, we have a tightened labor situation, so we try to guide the companies and give grants and programs to help the company to extract the maximum value from the limited resources that they have. That's where we are doing what we are doing today, which is a whole productivity movement. So we are transforming our economy right now, actually, and it is a 10-year plan. The other thing is that we are encouraging more and more Singaporeans to start business. Why? Because we need new injection of companies into our economy so that it has its vibrancy and new blood can be added in so that new ideas can come out, new innovation. So we actually have our own, I would say, created our own Silicon Valley in Singapore. In fact, we embarked on this plan about 2 years ago, and right now we're building the different parts of Singapore to have that kind of startup hub. And we are encouraging foreign startups as well as local startups to come together and build an entrepreneurship ecosystem to create more new enterprises, to create more new business in order for new ideas to come up so that they can make a difference to our economy. we must make sure while we have all the hardware, houses, we have jobs, we must have an environment where our citizens can enjoy and also have a better quality of life. I used to come from the sports ministry for about 5 years. One of my master plans was to make sure that wherever Singaporeans live, within 2 kilometers, they have a sports facility. And this is what we have achieved so far. Our fields and indoor sports hall, swimming pools in school or for public to use are all open up for public. So within 2 kilometers of where they live, they would have a sports facility. So sports is big in our society. We make sure we have high participation. We're not there trying to win medals, but we must make sure that they all keep a healthy lifestyle. So we provide all this hardware for them so that they have a better quality of life. So this is one of the things that we do. We have a vision and a plan up to 2030. And that was the first milestone we have reached, that within the walking distance, they can access to a sports park or a facility. Our new project that we have so far going to be launched next year is our Sports Hub. It's a $2 billion project that we have set up, and it's also one of the plans that when I was a sports ministry, that I oversee. And this Sports Hub, it is the place where we want all the major events to be organized in Singapore. And this Sports Hub has recently been opened, and we continue to want to bring in the international event into it, because that adds to the vibrancy of Singapore as a whole. It will give us a total experience when you visit Singapore, and also make sure that Singapore can become a global city. Garden and the greenery of Singapore is a very important aspect. In fact, from the times of our founding father, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, he has made sure that every single road, right from when you touch down from the airport, it will always have plants, flowers, trees. And today, our benchmark of making Singapore like an urban city to have a green landscape is to make sure that every single part of Singapore have at least 60% is green, and with plants, flowers, and trees. So if you go around Singapore, you're never short of plants or trees or flowers. It is a concerted plan, and we make sure that it's done. So I would just like to introduce that we are partners of this forum, and we also we'll also be organizing other forums at City Summit in future, and hope to share more stories of Singapore to you in time to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you. Minister, thank you very much indeed. You have described the drivers of city development: population, education, housing, health, livability, quality, competitiveness, entrepreneurship. This is how to build great cities. Mr. Mayor explained in his opening remarks that we're looking today at the relationships between national governments and cities. And for a few moments now, we're going to introduce one of the research papers that has been prepared for this forum. And after that, I will ask First Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister for some short remarks before they have to leave us. So, to introduce our study on world cities and nation states, a new deal for the 21st century, please welcome my colleague from London, Tim Moonen.
Thank you, Greg. It's a pleasure to be here. The age of cities, and in particular world cities, is upon us. The current cycle of globalization sees more and more cities embrace international opportunities, drive value creation, and achieve performance that is closely linked to global demand. And yet, this phenomenon of globally connected cities follows directly in the shadow of a 20th century that was very much a century of the nation state. After all, 50 years ago, dominant nations nearly always tried to constrain growth in their large urban areas and treated big cities as problems rather than opportunities. One of the paradoxes of the new century of cities is that it inherits nearly all the political structures, identities, and organizing principles of the nation-state system. A key question, therefore, arises: how are world cities and their national governments reorganizing and updating their relationship for the urban age? In this report launched today at the Moscow Urban Forum, we've looked at the latest experience and innovations in 12 world cities, some in federal and some in centralised government systems, some in capital cities, some not, cities with different political traditions and institutional frameworks. We've drawn on over 40 interviews with national ministers, city government officials, business leaders and expert academics. A big thank you to all of those who have contributed. We believe this is the first time that the multiple dynamics between world cities and nation-states have been captured through a global and comparative lens. These world city nation-state relationships are very important not only for a city like Moscow, but also in many other places, especially as more sectors and more countries globalise. Whereas previous cycles saw cities such as London and New York achieve global reach through finance, business or media, in the current cycles, the newly globalising sectors include science, medicine, tourism, higher education, design and clean technology. But of course, as they tap into overseas demand, world cities are something of a mixed blessing for nation-states. On the one hand, they generate substantial revenues for states to spread around their territory. They can also help national economies to be more connected to global systems of trade, production, investment and talent flow. On the other hand, the rapid growth of world cities also creates externalities: inflation, congestion, infrastructure stress, stretched housing and labour markets, land use dilemmas and social divisions. National governments also have to face the impact world cities have on the development prospects of other regions. These challenges have given rise to tensions between nation-states and world cities and concerns about whether the world city model is always a good one to adopt. So supporting world cities with both the challenges and the opportunities is then a critical new task for national governments. Globalisation led to exaggerated claims about the death of the nation-state. But in fact, national governments still play an essential role both for their countries and for their world cities. They manage and control migration. They choose where to locate institutions. They shape planning systems, lobby for treaties, address key industries during downturns, address inequalities, and much more. What this research shows is that in many world cities, a new spirit of partnership and dialogue is now visible, one between the world cities and nation-states, one that is driving progress on the framework adjustments and the key projects that are needed to optimise the world city model and make it sustainable for the whole nation. I don't have time to talk about all 12 cities we covered in detail, but I would like to briefly highlight examples of innovation and progress in 6 of them. The images that follow form part of an exhibition based on this report, also launched at the forum today. Hong Kong has thrived as a special autonomous region under the One Country, Two Systems arrangement agreed with China's central government in 1997. The city has been able to successfully open up the vast market of the Pearl River Delta and has retained its own policies on immigration, currency and media. In return, Hong Kong's stock exchange is a key source of international capital for China, and its financial know-how and unique trading experience is helping China manage its resources and its risks. Many world cities need support to manage and finance their growth. In my home city, London, is now more populated than at any time in its history and is now becoming a 10 million person city by 2030. Currently, the major challenge is the UK's very centralised financial system. London only keeps 7% of the taxes its activity generates, which leaves it with very little room to meet its increasing infrastructure investment demands. But last year, a London Finance Commission was launched and made a persuasive case for expanding London's fiscal autonomy and adding to the momentum for fiscal devolution to all of England's large cities. When cities make the transition from an emerging world city to an established one, new kinds of input from national government may be required. In Seoul, Korean central government ministries are being relocated to a new city 100 kilometers away in a new attempt to rebalance the national system of cities. The government is also now engaged much more proactively with Korea's more struggling secondary centres. Perhaps Mumbai's most serious obstacle to becoming a world city is its extraordinarily fragmented governance system. What it needs from higher tiers of government is recognition and leadership at the metropolitan scale. But last month, the Chief Minister of its state government agreed to create a dedicated coordinator position for the Mumbai region. If we turn to Moscow, the city's ambitious program of urban restructuring and decongestion received a major potential boost from the federal government with the creation of New Moscow. Financing and implementing Moscow's major projects, including along the Moscow River and preparation for the 2018 World Cup, will also require federal cooperation on framework reforms, land ownership and investment incentives. Of all the 12 cities we studied, it's arguably New York that has the most remote relationship with its national government. But even here, the city has received substantial help to recover from serious crises and setbacks, from 9/11 to the 2008 recession and most recently Hurricane Sandy. More detail on these 6 and the other 6 cities can be found at this exhibition. But the picture emerges that world cities begin from different starting points and are learning to adapt their inherited relations with nation-states. At the same time, nation-states are recognizing that they can endorse urbanization and leverage their world cities to achieve goals that would otherwise be hard to reach. The age of world cities is still in many ways just beginning, and so is their dialogue with nation-states. The speed at which states adjust to having world cities may be critical. On the one hand, established world cities that mostly depend on international demand need government to create investment capacity and help deal with housing supply. Emerging world cities, which still depend on their national economies primarily to continue to build their global roles, need their governments to back the urgent agenda for redevelopment and spatial change. And the successfully transformed cities, such as Hong Kong and Seoul, need to keep winning support from their national government to maintain competitiveness. In all cases, whether nations regard their world cities as strategic economic assets or simply large population centres, is a key component in whether their growth is productively shaped. Finally, one of the risks we see in most of the 12 examples, especially in Moscow, is distortions in the national system of cities, a result of brain drain, unequal growth patterns and fiscal imbalances. Excess demand in world cities has become a source of hostility towards them and also creates negative side effects. For nation-states that accept that they will have a world city in the future, a sustained national policy for the future spatial economy will be needed. With the help of their cities, many nation-states are moving this way and also adapting to help investment and promotion in their cities, and paying attention to the needs and aspirations of the second and third tier centres. In the next 50 years, it's likely that there will be many more cities that are genuinely international in their character. So it is imperative to digest what has been learned by world cities and nation-states so far. We hope that this introduction will encourage you to read our report and visit the exhibition. Thank you very much.
Well done, well done. Tim, thank you very much indeed. So global cities are the keys for national economies. Cities are no longer problems, they're now economic assets. National governments are rebuilding their relationships with cities, and the big cities are helping the smaller cities to succeed. Mr. First Deputy Prime Minister, if I may, thinking about Russia, how do you see the improvements in Russian cities as important for the national economy?
Доброе утро, добрый день, уважаемые дамы и господа, дорогие друзья.
Good evening, dear ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank Sergei and his team for having the 4th urban forum already, and this forum is important not for the Moscow government only. The federal government takes a close look at the work of this forum, and all the materials which are provided for the discussion here are very important for the federal government. Today we're here with a minister who is dealing with the construction and the housing and utility sector, Mr. Menya. So we're here to support, not just to support you, but also also to learn from you. Forum is an excellent platform for us to understand how the largest cities of the world develop and what are the trends of Moscow development, how we should interact with the Moscow government at the federal level to boost this development. I won't repeat what has been said. Much has been said about drivers. I absolutely agree with everything, and we have been discussing it all the time. We've been promoting this topic all the time. But now a few words about Moscow and what's the difference of Moscow from other largest hubs of the world. So Moscow, in its 100-year-long history, had witnesses lots of transformations and changes. And I know that other cities that we've seen in the presentation also changed drastically. Let's have a look at London. London of the 1960s is not as it's today. If you have a look at Singapore, 50 years ago there was nothing, and now it's a flourishing center. And we try to be equal to this city, to this country, and take lessons and borrow some things in not only in urban development but also in the country management, because Singapore managed to show us how to make the livable space in the country. Every has its great history. And Moscow's history was on the one hand great, but on the other hand it generated lots of future problems and challenges. You know that in early 20th century, the capital of Russia was moved from St. Petersburg to Moscow. The new master plan was adopted, and many people called Moscow the big village. Kaganovich had a plan according to which the city had to be drastically changed at a large scale, and this happened. So now we don't have this dirty village anymore. We have a large city, a mega-city. Nobody thought at that time that people will drive cars, that people will have their own property, their real estate. It was absolutely different model, and many things were built especially for this model that was developed at Stalin's time. Then there were 1990s when our country collapsed, and lots of things were changed. At that time, we witnessed the boom in our development, significant development of the city. Many new things were achieved in Moscow. This was so important for New Russia. And after 15, 17 years of this development, this contributed much to the city's development, but also it evoked new problems, both for Moscow and for Muscovites. So we need to resolve all those problems to feel Muscovites and guests of Moscow feel comfortable. So now the new government of Moscow faces the challenge to improve the city conditions and to meet all the needs and requirements and expectations. I understand that other cities have lots of problems, but they, of course, do not have snow as we have. But I should say that we really face a hard task on resolving all those problems which have been accumulated. Moscow government has lots of plans, and Moscow government asks for our piece of advice about how to improve those plans. But we provide our support to the Moscow government in implementing those plans. As for Singaporean experience, about which we've heard, well, you know, nearly every second year I visit Singapore because I am the participant of the interdepartmental committee, and Sergei Semyonovich Sobyanin was there before me, and now I'm replacing him. I should say that people live in a very comfortable way there, but this also generates lots of restrictions for the residents of this city. And the reason of that, the specific behavior of institutes, of public institutes, there are special rules how public transport should operate, how well it should be developed. Then there are, as you know, there are special rules of car owners, and there are no traffic jams, but all the cars are very expensive there. You know that the situation is very hard in the city because they have traffic congestions. But still, Singapore manages to build lots of blocks of flats in this city where there are no free areas, no free land plots, no drinking water. But still, due to lots of investments, there are new parks, new houses, new social infrastructure. And this is not a miracle made by people. This is done due to the permanent cooperation with citizens of Singapore, with city dwellers. And the people try to find consensus, and the government tries to find consensus with the people, and it's not so easy to achieve. Sergei Sobyanin and his team has a hard task to reshape the institutes, the public institutes, which do not meet the requirements of common people and professional communities. So this work will take several years, and I believe here we'll have to find a balance between the needs of people and requirements of people, and also professional communities and institutions. I try to put this in my words, but Sergei, I understand you understand what I'm speaking about, and everyone understands. The easier thing is to do nothing, and then everyone will just scold over that. But when you start launching different initiatives, or when you push investment projects or social projects, all this results in those people who don't like such actions. Of course, we can make mistakes, but we should try to work in such a way to avoid so many mistakes. We should discuss all those mistakes to eliminate them or to avoid them. So, you know, I have spoken to many people who speak abroad and who speak in Russia, and I have spoken to our compatriots, former compatriots, and foreign citizens, foreign guests. And, you know, they told me that Moscow changed significantly, and now it resembles an international center. Now Moscow is a competitor to other global cities, and here I mean the living standards as well. Now when we have the new rules for parking, for car parking, and despite of the fact it was not so easy to do, still we have more space for people to live and to enjoy their life.
We get the first-class parks like VDNKH, Sokolniki, Gorky Park. It didn't exist even several years ago. This is the first-class facilities where you can get a high-class recreation service. And we can also have a REDS there, the VDNKH project, which is supervised by Mr. Sobyanin, will turn to be the best park in the world by 2017. So we have a very significant project in terms of transport development. We are constructing a lot of new roads, but there are a lot of people who are dissatisfied with the fact that these construction works are being conducted now, but when the construction is over, the Muscovites will be happy. But I would like to mention that the Moscow is transforming very seriously, and there are those who are supporting this transformation. There are those who are against it, and I can say that the quality of life is changing to the best, and the view of Moscow is getting updated. Unfortunately, not enough time passed since those moments when Mr. Sobyanin became the mayor. But if you remember Mr. Bloomberg in New York, he spent more than 10 years as a mayor, and he proved that his team managed to cope with a very serious task. But Mr. Sobyanin, I would like to wish you to get as much information as possible within this forum, and I think you will be even more careful to cope with the problems you are facing now, you also have friends in the federal government who will support you. Please don't be afraid of the mistakes you may commit on the way. But everything what you're doing is brilliant, and as a Muscovite, as a government member, I can tell you that Moscow became more beautiful. Thank you. If you allow me, we have a meeting of the government at 12 o'clock, so I have to leave you. I wish you success.
First Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of State for Construction and Buildings, thank you very much for being here with us today. We really appreciate your presence and your attendance. Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now go to hear a case study of one of the world's most interesting and dynamic cities, a growing city, a young city. Please will you join me in welcoming to the stage the mayor of Tel Aviv and Yafo in Israel, Mr. Ron Huldai.
Good day to all of you. I want to thank you all for this wonderful opportunity to speak about my city's challenges and priorities. This is Tel Aviv, a small city in the center of a small nation. On stage today we have representatives of some of the world's largest urban areas. Tel Aviv is the opposite. I like to call Tel Aviv the world's smallest large city. Its size is only 52 square kilometers. Yet, despite being so small, Tel Aviv has unique assets. It is one of the world's most creative and innovative cities. You might have heard that Israel is known in the world as a startup nation because of its technological development. Within Israel, the city of Tel Aviv plays a special role. Tel Aviv is known as a startup city because it has more than 750 early-stage startups, and this is the highest density in the world. 3 weeks ago, Tel Aviv was named the smartest city in the world in the Smart Cities Conference in Barcelona. And last week, the United Nations announced that Tel Aviv was accepted into the list of creative cities. Today, we are speaking about priorities and the drivers of cities development. In Tel Aviv, one of our main priorities is to develop the city to be the most attractive place for startup entrepreneurs outside Silicon Valley. We realize that the only way for a small city to compete on a global scale is through its creative industry. If you will, it is to leverage our advantage, which is not related to size or geographical location. I see Singapore has the same problems like we face. So how do you create such a place? In my opinion, the process has 2 stages. First, you create a city that will be attractive for creative people. And once they come, you provide platforms for these people to be even more creative. Tel Aviv was always the place that attracted entrepreneurs. Take a look at the city's first startup. This is the city itself. This is the founding moment that was taken when the city was born in 1909. The founders of Tel Aviv were creative dreamers who bought sand dunes and promised to build on them the New York of the land of Israel. This is what these sand dunes look like today. As you can understand, entrepreneurship is part of our DNA. And as I said, the municipality set out to develop the city's unique assets to make it one of the most fun cities in the world. God gave us 300 days of sun and a wonderful beach, as you can see, but everything else is made up of hundreds of policies and decisions. We develop wonderful culinary nightlife scene. We sponsor culture and art heavily from municipal budget. And we create an urban space that is fun and safe. But infrastructure is not enough. What is important is the city's values. The city of Tel Aviv actively promotes pluralism and tolerance, rational thinking and democracy. Only societies that are diverse and tolerant can truly develop creativity and innovation. And that is what happens to Tel Aviv. By creating a creative city, we managed within 15 years to double the number of young people between the age of 18 to 35. This is the first step. The second step is to promote innovation within the city by cultivating what I call the creative ecosystem. For instance, we reduce the city's task for startup companies by 50%. This is important for companies in their early stage before they start making money. We put free Wi-Fi, all our main boulevards, parks, and beaches. We believe that access to internet is a public service that everyone should enjoy. A few years ago, we began opening public co-working spaces for entrepreneurs. We give small companies free space, free Wi-Fi, free coffee, free table. When we began this process, I thought that the people would not want to work these spaces because they would be afraid to expose their ideas to competitors. But what's happened? What's happened is the opposite. People share their ideas with each other, and that way come up with a better idea. At the same time, we have introduced innovation in all our municipalities' services. I'll give you some examples. For instance, we communicate with our residents through social media. We open all of our data, city data, to our residents so they can develop applications for everyone. We have applications for all kinds of services, parking, bicycle, restaurant, and many more, that were developed by our citizens. And here is an example I'm proud of, and it's called DigiTel, a municipal application that gives you services through smartphones. Today, many of our residents use this application, and we are distributing this system to other municipalities. And most importantly, we are now opening our innovative ecosystem to foreign people as well. We are working with the government on startup visa so that entrepreneurs from around the world can work with our people. I hope the people from Singapore will come and work with us. As you can see, innovation is everywhere in Tel Aviv. We want to be innovative in everything we do. The only thing we do not want to change is the mayor. Some things are best when they are around for a long time. This is how we develop our city and its drivers. So I invite you all to come visit us. So please take a pen and pencil, and I want you to write down what you need, bring with you. Take with you one pair of shorts for the beach, another pair of shorts for your business meetings. Take a laptop. Don't eat a week before you come. Our restaurants are amazing. And don't bring your umbrella. You won't need it. So thank you. I hope to see you all soon in Tel Aviv. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much indeed. We all enjoyed seeing the picture of you on the bicycle as well, and many people here in the room would like to now accept your invitation to come to Tel Aviv. Please be ready for us next Saturday. We are all coming. We now will turn, if we may, to our panel discussion, and I'm going to invite our panelists to stay in their seats, to use the microphones, to press the button when it's time to speak. I want to begin with the Mayor of Mumbai and the Governor of Bangkok. I'm going to ask you both to tell us a little bit about what do you see as the main drivers of development in your city, and what do you do to get the national government to be a friend and a supporter as your city develops. Madam Mayor, please will you speak first?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I first like to give hands of cloth to Mr. Sergey, Mayor of Moscow and government of Moscow. They have organized such a large Moscow Urban Forum. Great applause. This is a great be here, and your hospitality is very good. Really, the objective of city planning are best on economic, social, environmental, cultural, sensitive policies that allow everybody to improve economically, and everybody has a right to full and equal participation in the built environmental, and that they can shape their own environment to meet their own needs. And so everybody should be participate, because it is not a duty of only mayor or government duty. Everybody should participate in that case. Every citizen should be there. Then only you can develop our country or our city. So then next is in our site, it is estimated that 1 billion people live in slum across the developing world. And in the South Asia, the proportion of the city population residing in informal housing settlement is high and appears to be rising in Mumbai. As many as 45% to 50% of its citizens live in Muslim. So it is our great responsibility to give them shelter. And that is our main problem we are facing. The next is, while generally the housing is the main focus of such inclusive planning for the poor, the other two aspects of urban living is employment and transportation. The informal sector plays a social role in providing livelihoods to the urban poor, employing as much as 65% of the urban working population in India. Meanwhile, transport is essential to get to and from work. However, while a majority of the urban population either walk or use bicycles, the majority of transport planning is focused on motor-driven vehicles, thus ignoring the desire of the large urban poor population in city.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So tackling the major challenges in Mumbai is about creating a city for all, as you said, tackling the problem of slums, promoting, of course, jobs, and in particular, transportation as the key for opening up the city. Let's turn to the Mayor of Bangkok, if we may. Mr. Mayor, what do you see as the key drivers for Bangkok, and what do you do to get the national government to be your partner and your friend?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me first say that it is a great honor indeed to be here, and I would like to thank His Excellency Mayor Sergei Sobyanin for his kind invitation and great hospitality. Let me briefly say that we have a law which is almost 30 years old, which forms the framework of our our exercise of power and the discharge of our responsibility. But the real driver for our work is the people's concerns and expectations. These concerns and expectations are expressed through the social media, through public opinion polls, through various interactive processes that we undergo, and also expressed through researches that we commission specifically. These concerns and expectations shift over time, they expand over time, but they revolve around three clusters of issues. The first cluster of issues is transportation and communication. The second cluster of issues concerns social development and social welfare, and the third cluster of issues consists of issues related to the physical environment, which people want to be safe, clean and green. In the pursuit of our task, we over time rely less and less on the government. Over the last 2 decades, our share of the national budget, or the support that we receive from the national government has gone down, while the government's budget has increased nearly 3 times. The government support to us remains numerically the same. And once upon a time, the funding from the government constitutes about 1/3 of our own budget. Now it is less than 1/5. So over the longer term, we rely less and less on the national government. But at the same time, the hallmark of our city administration is the existence of divided authority. Authority divided between the central government and our city government. Divided authority in issue areas ranging from traffic management, transportation, to education and public health care. Let me just give you one example. The city administration is responsible for everything that happens on the pavement of Bangkok, but our authority ends there. The central government's national police force is responsible for the road surface. So there is a real question of divided authority. There is no no certain formula for dealing with the national government, but mainly we use the power of persuasion or the lack thereof to gain what we want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Governor. So the power of persuasion and partnership between the city government and the national government in areas where there's shared authority or divided authority, traffic, education and healthcare. And the governor said transportation, social welfare and the physical environment are the key drivers. I'd now like to come to Dr. Antonas Monkas and to Paul Chan, the former mayor of Bogota and the Secretary of Development of Hong Kong. Gentlemen, we're talking here about city development, not just about city growth. What for you are the important differences between the growth of a city and the development of a city? Dr. Monkas, would you begin?
Yes. It's very important to transform economical growth in social progress. Many countries get a lot of bigger income, but do not distribute. Second, there are very important public goods that if they are not provided, you have not economical growth. Third, in Bogota, we worked a lot about what is called cultura ciudadana, citizens' culture. It's a very new field. It's changing social norms. For example, I was elected 2 times promoting more taxes. In the Colombian situation, you have to have more taxes. The second time, the city council didn't approve in the first year new taxes, so 63,000 people paid voluntary taxes. You have also public space. Public space is a very important collective good, and providing public space for poorest people is very important. There is also an international competition about brains. Colombian brains, in part caused by the violence, were running out of the country. So we have built conditions, a sort of innovative cultural change for attracting these Colombians that are outside. In my last campaign for the presidency, I didn't want, I would not be here perhaps if I had won, but the main motor of the green movement was Colombians outside, through internet, participating in Colombian political life.
Dr. Monkas, thank you very much. You talked about the mobilization of citizens and the spirit of the citizens, and you said that the citizens elected you on a promise of raising taxes to provide more services, more public benefits. So raising taxes is not necessarily electorally unpopular. And then you talked a lot about public spaces and the civic life of the city. Secretary Chan, for you, what is the important difference between the growth of a city and the development of a city?
Well, being Secretary for Development, naturally development is important.
Yeah.
So joking aside, I think what is more important is the vision. Why do we want to have development? Why do we want to have growth? For us in Hong Kong, our aspiration is to be Asia's world city, that people like to live, to work, to raise their family, and to pray. And to this end, at the moment, I think our priorities are on two fronts. One is to build capacity. For example, land supply is very limited in Hong Kong. We need to produce more land. And also we need to enhance our connectivity, both to the mainland of China and to the outside world. So we invest a lot in terms of our infrastructure development as well as airport. The second key priority is to diversify our economy. At the moment, Hong Kong is famous for being Asia's financial center. But this is an area that can create high value, but in terms of job creation, may not be able to cater for all. So for us, what is important is to diversify our economy, to move towards more innovation and technology, to allow our young people to have better job choices and better upward movement in the community.
So the development of the economy, the development of the city is about participation and diversification of the city, not just about more of what you have.
Certainly.
Right. So, Dr. Mokas, let me come back to you, and then again the same question for Secretary Chan. Are there different agendas for a city when the economy is rising and when the economy is declining? Should you do different things to help the city at different points in the cycle? Dr. Mokas?
Of course, it's very important. In Colombia, in 1999, we had a strong Colombian crisis in economy.
Yeah.
In Bogota, income dropped down 30%. Family's income. And in that moment, the city sold some of its facilities, energy company, and made huge investments contrast against the cycle. So in that moment, we helped a lot to the nation. Bogota is 8 million, Colombia is 44 million, and Bogota was a sort of saving device. This was strongly appreciated by international institutions. It's serving like a reservoir, like a warranty. 4 years before that, we had an international recognition of a city that was best managed than the country. So for the first time, we could have credit loans without the warranty of the state, of the national state. The other thing, we were exemplar in helping the national government to make its policies work. We were not stopping. We were pushing in the same direction.
Dr. Mokas, that's very helpful. So you're saying that the strength of the institution in the city provided the national government with extra fiscal capacity, and the strength of the diversified economy enabled the country to be more resilient to the downturn.
Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Secretary Chan, your opinion, do you do something different in the upturn and in the downturn to help the city?
Well, there could be tactical adjustments. Say, for example, during the economic downturn, it is more important to keep on the infrastructure investment because this will propel our economy. But at the same time, we should not lose sight of the longer-term objective and the changes in the cycle. So while we make tactical adjustments, we have to continue to invest and keep our competitiveness. And in our experience back in 2000, 2003, we suffered a lot economic downturn. We went up to the central government to solicit their support. So they sent more tourists to Hong Kong, and by doing so, propel our economy. But on the other hand, at the same time, we need to think long term. in terms of preparing ourselves for the economic diversification that I mentioned, as well as improving our infrastructure so that when the cycle comes, we can reap the full benefit of an upcycle.
So during the downturn, you focus on diversifying the economy, planning and implementing infrastructure investment.
Yes.
Right. Thank you very much. Madam Mayor, Mr. Governor, may I come back to you now? Now, one of the comments that is often made is that the biggest cities in any nation suck in all of the opportunities. And the consequence is that the smaller cities and the smaller towns suffer because the big cities take everything into them. Is this an agenda that you have in India or in Thailand? And what can the big cities like Mumbai and Bangkok do against this argument? Madam Mayor.
Various policy measures are being implemented across the domain of forestry, pollution control, then water management, clean energy, and marine and coastal environment. Then some of these policies are like joint forest management, then green rating for integrated habitat assessment, then coastal zone regulation zone, economic labeling and energy efficiency labeling, fuel efficiency standard, etc. and etc. We are all these we are implemented so well that we can give all facilities to everybody.
Yes.
Who will be come to us.
Yes.
That is and we give them prior basic needs that should be fulfilled. That is our agenda, and that we are. I like to share that we are proud to say that we are providing them well.
Madam Mayor, that's very important. So there's two key ideas there. One, the big city must itself become more sustainable so it doesn't steal the resources from the rest. And on the other hand, the national policies must be there so everybody, no matter where they live, can benefit. This is your approach.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Governor, for you, does Thailand love Bangkok? Do you get support from the other cities and towns, or do they see you as taking their opportunities away?
I think the reality is very clear that even though Bangkok pays over 70% of the nation's taxes, we get a very rapidly declining proportion of the national budget. So we cannot be justly accused of sucking in everything, although many provinces continue to see us as the rich boys of the country. It is also very clear that Bangkok serves the people from outside Bangkok. There are many people, especially the middle class, who live in neighboring provinces, and we accept their children to our schools. We provide them access to public health services on the same conditions that we do to our own residents. So we do serve those from the neighboring provinces. In fact, sometimes the perception is the other way. Some people would say that people from the provinces come into town, help to cause traffic congestion, throw away their garbage in our city, and then go back home to pay taxes. Thank you.
Mr. Governor, thank you very much. So Bangkok produces 70% of Thailand's tax base, but only receives a small proportion in return. And in addition, you provide services to people who don't pay taxes in Bangkok, who come in to get them. Now, I'm going to ask all of our panelists one final question, if I may. We'll start with Dr. Mokas, and we'll come down. What's the one thing you would really like your national government to do to help your city to succeed, and what would your city do if the national government did that? Dr. Mokas.
We have to manage to get out from a war that has a long duration, 50 years. So we ask the national government to win or to negotiate, but for doing so in a sustainable way, we have to play very clean. We have to respect Constitution. We have to manage the guerrilla with constitutional means, not unconstitutional violence.
And what will the city do as the national government in Colombia is securing peace? The negotiations, I understand, are going well. What will this enable Bogota to do?
Bogota has to teach people to maintain very close to Constitution. We have developed a citizens notion that is not nationalistic. Our hymn for the campaign for the presidency was, we are citizens of the world. We are not just Colombians. Myself, I am from Lithuanian origin. Lithuania is 3 million. So in some sense, Lithuanians are very proud of me. But I think that I helped to have a more cosmopolitan point of view. It's understanding that we are part of humanity, that we cannot have too much different rules for us than humanity has for itself.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mocas. So if the national government is able to secure peace, Bogota is able to be a cosmopolitan global city, and through Bogota, all Colombians can be citizens of the world. Yes. Secretary Chan, what is it that you would ask for from the national government?
Well, it is not a one-way street. We have to ask something that would be mutually beneficial. So, in fact, the central government has been very supportive to Hong Kong. Say, for example, in the past, they give us priority access to their market, and also using Hong Kong's stock exchange, Hong Kong's capital market for listing mainland companies. If I may give you an example, the first mainland Chinese company coming to Hong Kong for listing was back in 1993, about 20 years ago. Only raised for about 50–60 million US dollar. But up till now, the number of mainland Chinese companies listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange is over 800. The total amount raised by them is over US 500 billion. In terms of market capitalization, it is about 60% of our market and accounting for 70% of our turnover. But this is not just important for Hong Kong, but also important for them as a venue to get the international funding and the internationalization of renminbi. So what we are trying as the next step is to make sure Hong Kong is included in the 5-year plan of the national government, so as to further strengthen our positioning, and also this would be a very important basis for us to be integrated with the southern part of China as an important city in the region, so that in the future the competition is not just city to city, it is region to region. We still remain relevant and competitive.
Thank you very much, Secretary Chan. So if the Chinese national government includes Hong Kong decisively in the 5-year plan and in the financial long-term system, then Hong Kong is able to help the region of Pearl River Delta to grow and to capitalize the Chinese businesses in the way that you described. So, Madam Mayor, what is your hope? What would you like the federal government in India to do, and what would Mumbai do in return?
Definitely our central government and state government both are supporting very well, and I like to give name here our respected Prime Minister Narendra Ji Modi. He's very aggressive and is very hopeful that India should be first in rank, and that's why there's Swachh Mumbai Abhiyan, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan also is going on, and everybody is participating in that. And our aim is there should be more and more gardens to be available to everybody, and the prior education, all kind of education, then health, then security to women, secure that safety for women and all child should be provided. These are the priority of our aim, agenda. And the central and state government both are supporting very well. They are providing fund also for that. And we are well planned for, you should be, you can see within 3 to 4 years, we should be first rank maybe all over the India. Yeah, thank you.
Madam Mayor, thank you. So education, health, safety and security, especially for women, is going to be important. The national, the state and the Mumbai government can work together on that. And if you do that, the city is going to prosper. Mr. Governor, what is your wish from the national government of Thailand, and what will Bangkok do in return?
I have always believed, and I continue to believe, that synergy is best. The national government and the city government have complementary attributes which would allow us, if under favorable circumstances, would allow us to work much more to the benefit of the people. But I'm also realistic. I have been in politics for nearly 20 years, so sometimes one cannot hope for the kind of synergy that one would like. At minimum, I would love to see a couple of things. Firstly, as the elected governor of Bangkok, I would simply love it if the government allows us to do what the people elected me to do. And we don't even need money a lot of times. And secondly, if the government wants us to do something for them, give us the resources, give us the tools to achieve what they would like us to do. If I can get these two things, I'll be very, very happy. I would open a bottle of champagne or a bottle of vodka or whatever, and I'll be happy for life. Thank you.
Mr. Governor, we would like to have the champagne and the vodka with you. We accept the invitation. But first, we have to achieve freedom of maneuver for the governor of Bangkok. He needs to be able to do what the people elected him to do. And secondly, greater access to resources and tools. So some way to better share these opportunities. I want to now invite everybody in the room to thank, if you will, our panelists. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to invite again our distinguished host, the Mayor of Moscow, Sergei Sarbanyan, to give his observations and comments on the discussion. Mr. Mayor.
It was a great discussion. And once again, I see that we speak the same language and we have the same problems. Quite interesting questions were addressed to the mayors of the cities, and I also would like to say a few words. That's true, that the growth and development are not synonymous. Moscow knows this quite well. When we had the large-scale growth of the city, and those who are present here, I mean investors and developers, who had huge projects, and at the same time, this was not in favor of people, this was damaging to their comfortable living. We saw with our own eyes the difference between the growth and development. In my opinion, the development is not a city development. The city is the place where people live, and city development means human capital development. This is the comfortable living and convenience for living in a megacity. It means good transportation, communication, high quality of medical services, education, social support. Honestly speaking, there are no contradictions between large investors, developers, and the citizens. It's important for the city to find compromises between the vibrant development and construction works and the interests of the citizens. This is the main idea and the main task of today's government of Moscow. Speaking about the development drivers of megacity, Moscow is not exception to the rule. The main driver in the development is the energy of millions of people living here and good management of the city, which is not something static. It's impossible to achieve good governance and stay idle. Every day we have to take our efforts. Every day we should improve all the processes and strive for improvement. Obviously, if you plant a tree in the desert, and if you plant a tree in a good climate, in a fertile land, you will see that the tree will not grow in the desert, but it will blossom in a fertile land. The same situation is with cities. In large city, every investment generates fast return investments. Therefore, large investors and investments go to large cities. We have vibrant development of businesses and of business environment. The drivers of growth in megacities are the competitiveness of services, starting from preschool education till the higher education, restaurants, houses, roads, comfort. All this attracts lots of people and investments, of course. This contains some contradictions between the development of a large city and other cities, small cities. But it seems to me that such contradictions cannot be overcome. For instance, I will give you an example. The first large networks, global networks, appeared in Moscow. After Moscow had enough of them, they went to cities with millions of populations and then to smaller towns, and so those networks were spread all across the country. But without coming first to Moscow, they won't be able to come to other cities. The same could be said about other investment processes. It's obvious that the city changes its economy, its structure, and whether it wants or not, it relocates its industrial facilities, large industrial facilities, and those industrial facilities develop in neighboring regions. Therefore, we can say that the economy of large cities and small cities become complementary. The large city becomes the huge market for the consumption for other regions, for other cities. The Central Federal District, where 1/3 of our country lives, supplies 80% of its products to Moscow and Moscow region.
Moscow is a customer of a very large number of products, so many economy sectors from the central Russia and also from the other part of Russia are supplying us with the services and goods. So that's why we have an opportunity to develop, and we can also add something to the economies of other regions too. And in conclusion, I would like to say we do not compete with Vladivostok, Chita, or Krasnodar or Krasnoyarsk. We compete with London, New York, Paris, Berlin, Beijing. We are fighting for brains, for the intellectual part, for the people. We want to keep in Moscow, to keep in Russia, and the task of the largest big cities in the world is to keep and to attract not only investments, but also the global intellect, and to become more competitive, not only the city, but also the country. Thank you very much, dear friends.
Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much indeed. We're moving towards the end of our session now, and in a few minutes, I will invite all of the city leaders, all of the mayors, all of the delegation leaders here in the room to come to the stage to join Mr. Mayor and the other dignitaries for the official photograph in 1 minute's time. Let me say that we have had a very interesting starting plenary, and Mr. Mayor has just summarized brilliantly what we've learned. Growth and development are not the same things. Big cities must grow and must be developed in the interest of nation states, but they must be shaped and they must evolve actively for the interest of citizens, as the Mayor said. People's needs must guide development. Secondly, we heard that cycles matter. In the upswing, we must succeed, we must compete, we must be efficient. In the downswing, we must plan, we must invest, we must enlarge capacity. We heard from Mr. Mayor that big cities do not compete with small cities. They compete with other international cities, and the big cities bring to the nation and the other cities opportunities, visitors, investors, trading partners. The big cities are customers. The governor stressed the big cities produce the taxes that pay for the services in the other cities, and also, of course, the big cities provide partnership. We then heard that the national governments are starting to recognize the importance of the big cities, and they're providing the big cities with new opportunities for reform, for investment, and for partnership. And there's very much more to come. So please join me now, if you will, in thanking the Mayor of Moscow, Sergei Sarbanyan, and all of the delegates on the stage, our distinguished speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. I now wish to invite all of the delegation leaders, the mayors and the other city leaders to come to the platform for the photograph with the mayor. Please come and join the mayor. And as they come to the platform, let's give them one final round of applause, please.